What's up, y'all? I am back for another video. Sorry about the streaming mishap earlier. For some fucking reason, my computer, I'm thinking it's the laptop, but there's some reason when I was streaming, it just kept causing like a hissing sound. Because it's weird, because granted, I do videos for my phone, so I might, maybe one day, like, maybe next month or so, I'm gonna try again. But I might just try streaming from my phone and see if that will fix it. Because it seems like when I streamed from the computer, it was just nothing but like the audio was like just static. Like it was bad. So I don't know. I mean, I have StreamYards now, so I don't know if maybe I'll try it through StreamYards and see if that works. But if that causes more static issues, I might just have to figure something out. But so I just wanted to address that. But today I am listing my 10 favorite movies from 1994. And 94 was such a, a transitional year. I mean, this was the year, we're going from this is when I would really say the early 90s fully stopped from going into like the mid 90s. Grunge was on its way out because unfortunately, this was the year Kurt died. You had that last big album from Soundgarden. I would really say was kind of the last like big grunge album. I mean, there's grunge albums after that, but really it was that one that fell on Black Days. But like movie wise, Shawshank Redemption, which like the movie is not gonna be on my list because I have to go with movies I actively watch all the time, or at least a couple of them. I can maybe have one or two that I don't maybe like. Natural Born Killers on my list, my number 10. I haven't watched that one in a minute, but I still think it's an iconic one. And I have to mention it. Of course, Lion King's gonna be on my list. I mean, that movie is the movie that made. It's one of those movies. Whatever I think of Disney right now, that's one of those movies that made me. If I ever make a video, if I were to do a list of like movies that made me, Lion King definitely would be up there. So, of course, Pulp Fiction is gonna be on there. That's one of Tarantino's best. And then my number one. I mean, Pulp Fiction was almost my number one, but I had to go with The Crow, and I'll go more into it later. But yeah, 94 was, I think, I'm pretty sure Forrest Gump was 94 too. I have this right now. So I'm just going to see if it was 94, because if it is, then, yeah, Forrest Gump was 94. I had a feeling it was. So I'm like, that's another one. Obviously, I look at the film a little differently now, because of fucking Jenny. Fuck Jenny. But the movie itself is still iconic, so of course I have to mention it, even if it's not on my list. But, yeah, 94, there was, like, a lot. Unfortunately, like I said, same with last year, 93, just slashers besides Wes Craven's New Nightmare, they're really, like, slashers were on their way out. It wasn't until, like, Scream. So, kind of just on limbo right now. So, but 94 was an overall really good year. So I definitely not surprised I was able to come up with at least 10. So let's get into it. I guess before I start, we'll go into what I got planned for the week. So tomorrow, World Is Not Enough. Wednesday, Commando, which I can't wait. Thursday, Starship Troopers 3. I might just watch it again just because it has been like a few weeks since I was supposed to originally review it. Then Friday, I will be doing Candyman reboot. I am going to rip that motherfucker apart. That movie was such a disgrace. So I'm going to rip that apart. Then Saturday, or Sunday, it depends on how Saturday goes. I will be the stream that I was supposed to do today. I'm just going to make it a video. I will do my updated Buffy ranking. So I'll either be doing this video Saturday, some point, like maybe Saturday evening. If I do it Saturday, it'll probably be evening like I did this past Saturday. Or it'll be like Sunday in the morning. And then Sunday after, like night, most likely will either be me reviewing Oppenheimer or Barbie. It depends. I'm not watching Barbie in the theater. I'm going to say, I can't even fucking believe it. I'm still kind of a little bit like, I'm actually watching this shit. I'm actually going to watch a Barbie movie. I'm not paying for it. I will say this now. So So I'm hoping it's up on that site by like kind of like how Indie was by like Thursday. Then maybe we'll watch it Thursday night or Friday morning or something, and then I can just get it out the way. So if it comes out, let's say like Thursday night, and I can just watch it, I probably won't review it till I might have to do my Buffy ranking on like another day if that does happen, but we'll see. But Oppenheimer, I do want to review. I do plan on reviewing that too, just because I do. It's one of my most hyped movies, and I figure if I'm gonna watch it, I might talk about it. So yeah, that's my plan so far. But we're gonna get into my list now. My top 10 list from 1994. So my number 10 is Natural Born Killers, directed by Oliver Stone, with Woody Harrelson, Juliette Lewis. Sorry. This movie was one I remember watching when this is one of those I kind of watched really young, even though clearly I'm supposed probably not supposed to watch it that young. Basically about Mickey and Mallory getting together, two children of traumatic childhoods, and basically get together and do a crime spree. And like the way it kind of highlights too, like how they become glorified, like they do that aspect is real. And actually, the one scene that I really think that makes this movie all trippy is how Mallory's scenes are done with her family and her dad. Granted, it's Rodney Dangerfield, so it's almost comedic, but like the laughing track, that laughing track fucking killed me, because it's like one of those things. It's like, is it because it was supposed to, like, this whole scene is supposed to be because her Mallory's dad, I'll try to use a PC word for it. He sexually abuses his daughter, but the way he's abusive to his family. Mallory's mom's like neglectful, and then so in a way, obviously, when Mickey kills both of them, you're granted when he killed her mom, it's very fucking like sets her on fire, like in her bed, and yeah, like the crimes they're very raw, but it really, I think this is one of those movies that showcases, like, I guess mass killings in a film, but like it's raw, and Woody Harrelson, I think, really kills it as Mickey. Juliette Lewis, I've seen her in a couple of movies. I'll admit, I think she's an okay actress. I don't think she's like, I've never seen a performance from her where I'm like, this is really amazing, but I actually really liked her as Mallory in this. And her and Woody Harrelson had good chemistry. And I think that's the thing about this movie. I think they had to have chemistry, because in these kind of films, they have no chemistry. You don't buy them as a couple. So I thought it worked. You have a good cast. I mean, Ronnie, fucking Iron Man's in it. Fucking Robert Downey Jr., young Robert Downey Jr. And yeah, it's, their ending is tragic. Well, Mickey and Mallory, man, the fact that they get away with it in a way, that's the part that kind of is trippy, because we see them later on as fugitives. So that's the thing. But yeah, overall, really like this film. I definitely recommend it. It's a little bit of a hard watch at times, but well-made movie, and I had to mention it. But my number 9 is Jet Li's Fist of Legend. Uh, this is one of Jet Li's best. And this is an underrated one. This is one of his ones that's not really well known. Like, unless you really know, like, look into Jet Li's older movies. This is before, you know. It's basically it's basically a remake of Fist of Fury. It's essentially the same kind of plot, but the fight scenes, the choreography. I reviewed this film like, not last year. I think it was 2 years ago now, almost. But I had fun with this. Jet Li as Chen is great. Obviously, it's one of those movies. The plot, like some of these old martial arts movies, it's not really about the plot. It's more about the fights. I love that opening fight scene. I love, like, just all the fight scenes, man. It's like Jet Li just at his best. And I had to mention it. Like, when I was going through the movies in '94, I was like, oh yeah, I'm probably gonna watch this one again. And it's just, granted, it's basically a remake of Bruce Lee. Fuck, I'm fucking up all these names. Sorry, guys. Bruce Lee's Fist of Fury, but I think he still made it his own in that final fight between him and, because basically, you know, it deals like Japanese government and, so yeah, that final fight was great at the dojo and like the different locations, you know, dealing with, like, you know, Japanese and Chinese. So it was a little bit of a period piece because it's set in 1937. But yeah, it's just a great martial arts movie. One of Jet Li's best. It's definitely not up there with, like, his upper films, but it still had to get mentioned. So that's my number 8. 9, sorry. My number 8 is Airheads. One of this movie is an interesting one. This is an ensemble film, but you have Adam Sandler, Steve Buscemi. I fucking love Steve Buscemi. Brendan Fraser, basically. The plot is this rock band, you know, they're struggling rock band, you know, they're struggling rock band, basically take over a radio station and so they can get airplay. And that's the fact that this works. And, you know, you have a young Brendan Fraser and as someone who likes, like, rock music, so there's, like, a lot of, like, obviously references to actual classic rock bands. So I'm gonna always love that shit. This isn't, like, I know, like, when people bring up Adam Sandler movies, they don't really bring up this one because it's not, like, I don't definitely put it as one of Adam Sandler's movies, like, let's say Happy Gilmore or Waterboy is, because he's not the main character. He's one of them. And if anything, I'd argue Brendan Fraser, Chaz, is the main character, but his dynamic with the band, just some of the scenes, Chris Farley, who, you know, granted, R.I.P. Chris Farley, but he was great. Ernie Hudson, I fucking love Ernie Hudson. David Arquette, like, he had a genuinely good cast. You have Harold Ramis, like, very big cast, and they all work. And, like, I just love the hijinks. And even by the end of the film, the band, you know, granted, they still go big by the end, even though they go to prison. It's a great film. I definitely recommend it. It's just a funny film. The dynamic between the band and just the hijinks that happen at the fucking station is funny. The radio station. So I had to mention it. And honestly, the music itself's not bad. Like, the music from the band, it's not bad. So I had to mention it. So definitely, that's my number 7. No, 8, sorry. Number 7 is Dumb and Dumber. Grant, I know I don't really talk about this movie a lot, but this is actually one of my favorite Jim Carrey movies. And basically the title says it, you know, 2 dumb friends basically set on a cross-country trip to retrieve money. Like, and it's 2 dumbasses. That's what makes this film work. Big gulps, huh? It's just the character work, and even, I mean, Jeff Daniels, who's also in another movie that's mentioned, that's gonna be in, he's in another movie that came out the same year. Granted, he played a way different role in that, but I love their dynamic, and I'm actually gonna probably review this movie. I know it doesn't seem like I really review comedies a lot. It's just I tend to comedies like are some of those movies because of some of the jokes and stuff. I might reference. I'll like occasionally here and there will do a comedy, but the reason I don't review comedy all the time, with comedy movies, it's hard to, because like with me, right? Y'all know when I review a movie, I tend to try to go into detail and break down the plot. Some comedies don't really have that, like a lot, especially like I mean, I did American Pie, right? And even with that, it was a little bit hard because it's more about the gags than like the plot. So it's like kind of weird when I'm like going into the plot, like, because some of these comedies, yeah, it's more about just the jokes. So that's why I tend to not really review comedies like all the time. But I will definitely review this one. I know there's a 2, which I don't really remember. I think I saw it. I just don't remember it. But Dumb and Dumber was fun. You have a good cast. Maybe, yeah, not a bunch of big names, but just a simple plot. Buddy comedy, you got 2 dumb dudes that try to retrieve money. And I think for me, Jim Carrey specifically as Lloyd, it just shows like how he is like kind of like a chameleon in terms of, at least within comedy, how he can just do all these different type of characters and just make it work. But like how he can make it work is just interesting. But yeah, that's all I can really say. I'm kind of being vague because this is one of those movies I think you gotta see the gags, but I just had to mention it. So my number 8 is Dumb and Dumber. My number 7 is Wes Craven's New Nightmare. So, or Freddy 7, which Wes Craven's New Nightmare is an interesting one. This one is basically, Heather Langenkamp is playing herself. Wes Craven's playing himself. I actually like this movie. I think it's not the best Nightmare. As a Nightmare film, I think one of it's definitely weaker in that sense of, that Freddy, he has a cool look, but the kills aren't that. They're very much retreads. Like, the first kill is basically, if you remember Nightmare or Nightmare on Elm Street 5, where he was, instead of because in this one it was the his claw hand comes out of the out of the steering wheel and kills kills Heather's boyfriend. And it basically is reminiscent of the motorcycle kill where Freddy's claw comes out of the bike and kills him. It's the same kind of kill. And then the second kill is Skin the Cat. Obviously that's from the first one. I feel like, but as a standalone film, it's great. I love the references. I almost kind of like that it referenced how Freddy even kind of became a joke. Like, in a little bit, like, there's an opening scene. Or not opening scene, but there's a scene where Heather's doing, like, an interview on, like, some, interview show, and Freddy comes in, and he's just kind of a joke. Because he's not scary anymore. Like, I did like that, like, Wes Craven even acknowledges it. But, so basically this demon, that's the problem I had. I didn't like the whole it's a demon instead of actually Freddy. I think it would have worked better if you just somehow had Freddy get into the real world instead of it being, like, some demon. That was the part I'm like, why would it pose as Freddy? I mean, I thought the kid actor, Danny, I could be getting the name wrong. I'm going to look for the kid's actor's name. Dylan. I don't know if it was the kid actor. He was just kind of there. I think another problem I have with the film, there was no real characters aside from the babysitter. there was no real characters because everyone was playing themselves. Heather was playing Heather. There's a scene where John Saxon talks to her, and that's John Saxon. He's as John Saxon. Same with Wes Craven. Like, so it didn't help that there weren't any real characters. Everyone was just kind of playing themselves. But it works because this film is almost, I bet you, or it makes me wonder, I won't say I bet you, but it makes me wonder if this kind of gave him partially the idea for the whole, at least meta aspect of Scream. Because this definitely was that. It was very much that Scream meta. I did like that opening scene, even though it was a dream, where they're building the claw and it kind of goes crazy. I think that was like one of the better kills, even though it was a dream scene. But I always liked the look of Freddy in this movie, the whole trench coat, and then the rope, like the mechanics of his glove in that one, the claws in that one looked trippy. So it was like, so I think there's little weak aspects, but I definitely recommend it, and it's definitely one of the better Nightmare films, especially way better than fucking, because it was a couple years after Freddy's Dead, which was, so it was at least like, and I like that Wes Craven even acknowledged like how kind of Freddy did become a kind of a joke. Within the franchise, so but other than that, let's get to my number 6. My number 6, I can't think of it right now. I hate this, man. Like, fuck. I'll just skip to my number 5, and if it doesn't come back to me, I'll just have to do what I did in the other video, and I'll, like, reference it in the chat, or in the comments, or in the fucking description. I'm fucking high right now. Get it? Reference it in the description. But my number 5 is The Mask. This is probably my favorite Jim Carrey movie. This is Jim Carrey at his best. And I think it also helps because The Mask kind of gave me like comic book kind of vibes. I don't know if it's based off a comic, an actual comic. Oh, actually, no, it is a comic. Oh, so I actually didn't know that. But yeah, that's why it works. But Jim Carrey was definitely the right pick. Like the fact that this mask and like the way it takes shape and the animation, and this is just Jim Carrey just at his wackiest, but not over the top, and it still works. I mean, Cameron Diaz is in it as the love interest. I thought she was great. And then Peter Green did a good job as the villain. Like, it's a fun little flick. It's like just the wackiness, the fact he just puts the mask on and it just goes crazy and it just changes his surroundings. The way it just kind of just makes it all different shapes, and the way he kills people, but it's funny. Like, obviously, because it's a comedy. This is going to be another movie I'm definitely going to, sorry about that. I am going to review at some point. Because I want to, man. Like, because this is, like I said, it's Jim Carrey at his best. The scene where he first puts the mask on and just all this shit is going crazy and just, yeah. So, there's gonna probably be a point where maybe I'll do Jim Carrey movies. So like that one, I'll definitely do The Mask. I don't know. I'm probably gonna skip Son of the Mask because I remember that was the one with fucking Jamie Kennedy, and oof, that was not good. Yeah, that was the one with fucking yeah, that Jamie Kennedy one was so bad. So no, and how like low budget it was, it just did not work. I remember watching it because I thought, because I watched it as a kid, so you think like, oh, Jim Carrey's gonna be good. No, so no, I probably won't review. Actually, I don't know. I might just for the fuck of it, but I might definitely get on like a Jim Carrey kick. Do that one. Do like the Cable Guy. Obviously Dumb and Dumber. I'd have to do 2 too though. So Dumb and Dumber 2. Sorry. Yeah. So do that one too. But yeah, I'll probably do that within the next month or two. It'll be soon. But yeah, I had to mention The Mask. That's one of my favorites. And just the fucking costume I like the mask, the special effects, the practical effects, the animation. Because there's points where, like, you know, sometimes there is animation. Granted, not like full on animation, but it looks like that. Like, even like when the mask like kind of gets exaggerated, you see like the animate, like the like overly long tongue and the big laugh. It looks good. Like, all the effects look really good. So yeah, that's my number 4. 3, no 5. Fuck, I'm fucked up. Number 4 is Lion King. This film was one of the films that made me, man. This is one of Disney at their peak. The great animation, that opening scene, you know, Hakuna Matata. One of the few times I like musicals. Well, the music in the movie is actually really good. The voice acting, you know, Jeremy Irons as Scar he's my favorite Disney villain. That is how you do a Disney villain. He's unredeemable, irredeemable. And when he kills Mufasa, you feel like when he just says, "Long live the king," and then he lets him go because Mufasa thinks he's gonna save him, and then he just lets him go. It's so iconic. James Earl Jones as Mufasa is so good. It makes like Mufasa, like the way they set that up. Yeah, you think he's gonna be like a big character, and then he dies. Dude, I was bawling when I was first watching that, man. I mean, I haven't watched Lion King in a minute, obviously, just because how I currently feel about Disney. But I'll definitely one day do it, and I bet you it still hits. Like, that scene is, you know, just can't wait to be king. And then we see Simba grow up, and then he avenges his father later on in the film. The hyenas are great. And then the way Scar dies, Scar goes out pretty fucking brutal. Like, this is when, like, they imply, like, villains died. Like, Scar got murdered by those well, not murdered, but, you know, killed by the hyenas. That's what fucking happened. And I remember, like that's what made that movie great. It wasn't just like a kids movie. This was when Disney, like, yeah, you know, it was for kids because, you know, you got like the animals, and I love the animation and the animal designs, but it's also like that. I mean, Mufasa's death. You know, you don't actually see him fully die. Like, you just see him fall into like the void, and you just kind of, you know, figure out what happens. But same with Scar. You don't see him actually get killed. You kind of hear it, but it's like this is when Disney actually gave a shit about their audience. So yeah. So I'm not gonna lie, you'll see a couple Disney films in some of these lists. So I can't, like, Lion King had to be on there. The amount of times I watched that as a kid, that might be my favorite animated. It's tied between that and fucking like The Incredibles, but yeah. So I had to mention Lion King at number 4. My number 3 is Speed. This is the movie that really, like, I love Point Break, but this is the movie that I really feel like really showed that Keanu, because Point Break, there are some points in that movie where Keanu, no disrespect, but some lines, "I'm an FBI agent," like that moment, like, that's memeable. I actually feel like in this, like, he's full on, like, him as Jack Traven is, like, he really showcases acting skill. I mean, it's an action movie, so I'm not saying it's like Oscar acting, but he really showed, like, his range. Dennis Hopper as by Howard Payne, Dennis Hopper's performance as Howard Payne is one of, and he was a one-man band, and the fact that, like, because Traven and his partner, you know, Jeff Daniels is in this movie. Exactly, plays a way different character. This is Dumb and Dumber. But that scene where, yeah, Howard wants to get revenge now, so that's why he basically rigs the bus, and the bus has to go under, basically, if it goes above 50 or under 50, the bus blows up, basically. And, I really like that. Like, I like that Howard Payne, he's a one-man army. You know, he had cameras everywhere. He didn't have like, I like Hans Gruber, but he didn't have like a whole fucking team with him. This was just one man because he wanted revenge because Traven prevented him from getting his money, wanted to steal his money, and we have a great face off in the end. Sandra Bullock is awesome. In general, I love the people on the bus in that movie. Like, I think they really carry it. The action is great, and the fact that a lot of it is on a bus, and they give you a little bit about Howard, but they don't go too into it where they give you like a cringy backstory. We just give you like a little bit of this is why he does it. And stuff, and then that final face up between Traven and Payne in the end is great, and they have to stop and I like the way him and Traven and Sandra Bullock's character, fall in love, and they don't like force it. Like, it just kind of feels natural. Like, yeah, obviously by the end they're gonna end up together, but they did it in a way where it wasn't just, oh, let's make them a couple, and they actually had chemistry, like, throughout the film. Like, you genuinely feel the chemistry. So, I had to give Speed a bitch. And one of my favorite Keanu movies, I definitely watch it, like, all the time. I mean, yeah, it's Die Hard on the bus. But not, like, it doesn't, like, it Die Hard in the sense that he has to stop a bad against time kind of thing, but my number 2 is, of course, Pulp Fiction. One of those movies I can just... The amount of quotes... It's such a quotable movie. It's one of... It's my favorite Tarantino film, and I understand why some don't like it. I'm not one of those... Like, I can't understand why some don't like it. Because, yeah, it's out of order, but it's one of those out of order films that I feel like you could still follow, right? Like, yeah, you have the beginning where it's, where you're following, Vincent and Marcella, Vincent's character, then Vincent and that whole apartment scene. And then, yeah, you got Tim Roth's character in the diner, Marcellus. You got a bunch of characters. Jules. Samuel Jackson is Jules. I don't think anyone could have played Jules. I mean, that whole apartment scene, like, that's like one of the most quoted things ever. Say what again? I dare you to say what again? Double dare you, motherfucker. Like, that's the amount of time that's been quoted. Uma Thurman, is in it. I thought the scene and the fact that that's one of the things I love about Tarantino. It's not an action-filled film. Like, there's action in it, but it's a lot. Tarantino is probably one of my favorite. If I had to say he's a king, I would also say definitely Martin Scorsese. They know how to just make dialogue-heavy films work. Where, yeah, it may not be the most action-filled film ever. Like, yeah, like, compared to Kill Bill, no, it's not. Like, the apartment scene even, there's not, like, a big shootout. It's more of a dialogue scene where it's Jules doing the shooting, but it's more, like, dialogue. And there's bits of action, like when Marcellus confronts, fucking Bruce Willis. But aside from that, it's an awesome film. I watch this one this is like one of those I watch yearly. I watch all the fucking time. Yeah, they say racial slurs, who gives a shit? I love Quentin's fucking cameo. And I'm not gonna say it. It's the funniest use of a racial slur. I'm obviously not gonna say it, but I always found that scene funny. Yeah, it's great. And it's out of order, but you don't, but Bruce Willis's Butch is great. I love granted, yeah, that fucking scene, and at the redneck shop, and where we see him get, I'll admit that scene's kind of hard to watch, but that scene afterwards though, where fucking Marcellus gets his revenge. You hear me, hillbilly boy? Fucking love that shit. We go get medieval on your ass. Like, so good. So, I'm definitely I'm happy I reviewed it. I'm happy I watched it. It's like one of my favorite Tarantino films. I mean, I can see arguments for other ones, like, as if we're going, like, objective, but I fucking love this one. So, my number one is The Crow. This film, the reason I picked this one was because, considering what happened with Brandon Lee behind the scenes, you would think that would have destroyed this film, and unfortunately this film, the product itself wouldn't have probably been good, but no. With what happened and the fact that they were still able to salvage and make such an incredible film, that is why I had to put it at number one. Because I would probably say, if I'm being honest, I'd probably watch Pulp more, but with what happened, I could not pick this one. Like, the fact that, like, with what happened and we got that, and I mean the story, it's a great revenge story, the aesthetic of it, and that's one of the reasons why I made that video when they first announced they were doing a bullshit reboot again. I'm like, why? You're never gonna recreate that aesthetic. The soundtrack, I mean, some of the greatest 90s bands, you have Pantera, The Cure, Nine Inch Nails, Stone Temple Pilots. It's like in one movie, and the way they're like, the music is used good in the movie too. It's not cheap. Like, it's not just, we have all these big name bands. No, they actually implemented in the movie. Like Big Empty, the song, they actually play it in the movie. And this is one of those movies where you want the bad guys to get theirs, because you find out what they do to Eric. Eric and his girlfriend, Shelly. It's one of the, you want them to get theirs, and they get theirs pretty brutally, each of them. And it's sad because Brandon Lee, the way he played the Crow was so eerie. Because it is a horror. I do kind of look at it as a horror movie, but it's also comic booky. The aesthetic of the city too looks really good. Michael Wincott as the villain is great. I kind of wish we got more of him in movies, because he was fucking great in this as the villain. He's some of my favorite parts of this movie. That final fight on top of the church. Yeah. Like, that's the perfect... It is a love story, too, in a way, because... he wants revenge for Shelley. You have Ernie Hudson is basically Jim. He's basically his Jim Gordon in a sense. Yeah. I definitely recommend it. Just watch the first one. I'll admit, I haven't watched the sequels, and I know some say, too, if they had went with another script, it could have been decent, but for me, with what happened, and one of the reasons I heavily explain with what happened, like, how you can, with what happened to Brandon Lee, and they were still able to salvage and make such an iconic film, that was one of the reasons I'm just against them making sequels or because it's just, you're not going to recreate that. The fact that they were able to pull this out, with what happened, you're not going to do that again. And that's why it didn't work a second or third time. So just leave The Crow alone. And it's just a product of its time. You're not going to have that 90s aesthetic, but not over Tony Todd's in it as one of the villains. Like, holy shit, Tony Todd's in this movie. It's like a good cast. And just great action film. It's a great, in my opinion, I don't look at it as a superhero movie, but it's a comic book movie. Because the Crow is actually a comic book character, and it's sad. Because Brandon Lee, I think if he had, obviously if he lived, there would have been a bunch of Crow sequels. There probably would have been Crow sequels inevitably anyway, because I think how well this movie did. But for me, just it is a mix of that product of its time. The soundtrack, the aesthetic. I just don't think you can recreate that now. You can try, but it's gonna be pathetic because they really captured. It's almost like Gotham in a way, similar to how Burton captured Gotham in his Batman movies. I wouldn't be surprised if that was an inspiration because there's even some aerial shots that look like how Tim Burton did his aerial shots in those Batman movies. So there's definitely inspiration from those, and yeah, and obviously, selfishly as a metal fan, rock and metal fan, the soundtrack I listen to all the fucking time. The amount of times I just sit down and just listen to that soundtrack is a lot. So yeah, I have of course had to put this on my list. So as my number one, can't wait for '95. Um, fucking Mortal Kombat movie, Major Pain, Friday, um, Die Hard 3, which is one of my favorite Die Hard movies. So it's gonna be fun. '95 is gonna be fun. So yeah, we're getting closer to the year I was born. So, but anyway, tomorrow, World Is Not Enough. I'll be honest, I do not remember this one. So I'm basically watching this one blind again, or fresh again, because I do not remember this one. So that's all I can really say about that. 94 is a good year. World Is Not Enough tomorrow. Yeah, that's all I got. So cheers, and I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. All right, y'all. Talk to y'all later.